Hi, my name is Mary McKnight, and I run the Service Dog Academy here in Seattle, Washington. And this webinar is called Diabetic Alert Dogs Myth versus Reality. I need to find out if all of you are actually seeing my screen. If some of you could raise your hand if you are actually seeing the screen, I'd appreciate that. Since I don't have the ability to yes, thank you, Casey. Thank you, Kayleen. I appreciate that. All right, perfect. So you can see the actual screen that I have. Okay, so basically, again, my name's Mary McKnight. I run the Service Dog Academy and the Diabetic Alert Dog University. And this webinar is designed to help those of you who are looking for a diabetic alert dog or are looking for training methods related to diabetic alert dogs. So I want you to get the real facts about what a diabetic alert dog is and what it can do for you and your family. So first off, I want to dedicate this presentation to my father. He actually died in March from complications of type 2 diabetes. And he was a DE agent and an amazing man. And he's kind of the reason why I've just started to completely focus all of my energy on diabetic alert dogs. So I love you, Dad, and I really miss you. All right, so how in the world did I start this organization? Well, that is my first service dog. His name was Jasper, and I got him in 2005 after moving to Seattle. Basically, all my life, I knew I was supposed to work with dogs. I actually ended up going to the University of Michigan and getting a degree in advertising and secretly hoping that Guide Dogs for the Blind would hire me out of college. And come to find out, even though I'd done all of this training and I had done, all of this dog sitting, they didn't have any interest in me whatsoever because I had no actual, degree or I had not spent time with organizations. So basically, once I found out that I could not become a service dog trainer for this organization, I kind of gave up on my dream. So I ended up coming down with depression and social anxiety when I graduated. And I found out when I moved to Seattle that apparently these disabilities were covered under the Americans with Disabilities Act. So I got myself a dog. And at that point in time, in 2005, there was no one in the Pacific Northwest that was helping people train their own dogs for my disability at that point. So I had to become the resource that I couldn't find. So basically, I had to train my dog on my own. And, I adopted him at 8 years of age. He was a really amazing dog. But basically, I had to, make everything up as I went along. So after he developed hip dysplasia and congestive heart failure, I had to start thinking about transitioning to a new dog. So I got myself an 8-week-old puppy and found myself completely unprepared for puppyhood. And I had read all these books and basically, I had read all these books and prepared for this puppy. And then once I got him, all of a sudden I was completely overwhelmed. Like everything that I had read, it was not applicable knowledge. So basically I got this puppy and was completely overwhelmed. So I ended up enrolling him in 6 hours of puppy classes a week to make sure that I made sure that this dog was suitable for service work, that I created the perfect service dog. So at that point, I was blogging about my experience so that I could help train the next service dog. That any mistakes that I made training this dog, I could help to use to train the next dog. So at that point, I decided about 8 months into this that I would have to become, again, that the resource that I couldn't find, because there was still no one in the Pacific Northwest that was helping people train their own service dogs. So I had to become the resource that I couldn't find. I got my canine studies degree. I'm one of about 40 people in the Pacific Northwest that has a degree in dog training certified by the state. Unfortunately, the dog training industry is not regulated whatsoever. So anyone can call themselves a dog trainer, which is really sad, because basically you can end up doing a lot of damage to a dog using inappropriate dog training techniques. So not only do I have my canine studies degree, but I actually have a certification as a professional dog trainer, knowledge assessed. And then I continue my education by going to anywhere from 2 to 3 to 4 sometimes seminars each year on the science of positive reinforcement dog training. So that's how I got into service dogs, is because number one, I needed one, and number two, there was no one in the area who was helping people train their own service dogs. All right. So why do I care about diabetic alert dogs? Unfortunately, my grandmother died from complications of type 2 diabetes. My father died this March from complications of type 2 diabetes. My husband's family is full of type 2 diabetics, and my husband is a diabetic. I have all the classic symptoms of metabolic syndrome and have been experiencing episodes of hypoglycemia, and as of recently have been experiencing hyperglycemia with readings around 240 or so. So obviously I didn't get into the business of training diabetic alert dogs because I wanted to make thousands upon thousands of dollars, because you actually can make a ton of money doing this. I just wanted to have a better life than my father had, because he was diagnosed really late, because the technology at that point could not pick up the what my dog is actually already experiencing. I am not, according to the doctors, a diabetic at this point, but I have low blood sugars and I have high blood sugars, and you can't tell me that I'm not experiencing all of these symptoms. So, and I can provide you with a meter, but the doctors is saying, oh well, you know what, your readings are quote unquote normal. And I'm like, no, 246 is not a normal blood sugar, people. Okay, I don't care what you say. 246 is not a normal blood sugar. So basically that's the reason why I got into diabetic alert dog training, is I wanted a better solution to manage what was coming down the pike. I knew it was coming, and I needed a better solution than what my father had. Okay, so dog nose facts. So puppies are actually born blind and deaf. And the only thing that they have that's working is their nose. And what they do is they use it to find mama's teat to suckle on to, get the milk that they need to sustain their life. Human dog noses actually have 5 million scent receptors. The average dog nose has 225 million scent receptors. So the portion of a dog's brain that's devoted to scent is 40% bigger. Actually, it's 40% larger than actually, sorry about that. So the portion of a dog's brain that's devoted to just their nose is actually 40% of their brain, not 40% larger. It's actually 40% of their brain is devoted strictly to their nose. So basically, we're walking around with noses with dogs attached to the ends of them. So, and the cool thing is that science has been unable to develop a technology that is as sophisticated as what every single dog has been born with. So I think that's super duper cool. All right, so dogs have been trained to detect explosives. You obviously know this. Drugs, bed bugs. So I think it's really cool that dogs are being used to detect bed bugs now. They've got dogs that can sniff out black mold. Dogs that can detect lung cancer now. There's actually been studies to prove that dogs can detect lung cancer. There's actually a dog here in the Pacific Northwest that goes around and looks for whale poo in the ocean. I mean, that just blows my mind. That just boggles my mind. If a dog can find whale poo in the ocean, imagine what it can do when it's sitting next to you. So Yeah, just think about that. Just think about the possibilities. The ocean is expansive, and yet these dogs are finding whale poo in the ocean. And the reason why they're doing that is because they want to see what the whales are eating and how they're doing, and that they use their poo to find out, how they're doing. Dogs have been used to find endangered species, to find decomposing bodies, to find truffles, to find melanoma. I actually had one of my students who had a melanoma on her leg, and her dog tried to scratch it off and bite it off of her. But dogs actually have been trained to find melanoma or to smell out melanoma. Dogs have been trained to find agricultural pests, mobile phones. So you're probably wondering, what in the world? Mobile phones? Why is that important? Well, it's really important in jail when you actually, are not supposed to have a mobile phone. And these dogs are being trained to find mobile phones and contraband in jails, which I thought was really super cool. And last but not least, we've got diabetes. So dogs are being trained to detect diabetes. But in my opinion, the human body is basically just a bunch of biochemical signals. So theoretically, if there is a biochemical change in the body, a dog should be able to be trained to detect it, since we're made of nothing but biochemical reactions in the first place. So this has led me into the idea for training dogs that we hadn't even thought of before. For example, we've trained the world's first narcolepsy alert dog. We're looking to experiment in asthma alert, and then we're also looking to experiment in high blood pressure alert. So if you have a medical condition that isn't typical of a medical alert dog, we are going to try and help you with that, and help you. Even you do have diabetes, we can help you train a dog that maybe detects your asthma as well. So you are not limited in the type of training of an alert dog in our company, because we feel like experimental alert dog training is like the coolest thing in the world. All right, so this is Cracker Jack on the left. He is a migraine alert dog. He is a really great alert dog. He actually will bug his mom for sometimes hours before her migraines get there, and continue to bug her until she takes her medication. And then this is Marduk. He is one of our most amazing service dogs. He is actually a narcolepsy alert dog. He is the world's first narcolepsy alert dog. And basically, we trained him the same way that we train diabetic alert dogs. I was like, sure, I'm willing to help you. And turns out this young lady, she's 26 years old. She's been living with narcolepsy for 10 years. She didn't have a job. She couldn't go to school because of her condition. And now, due to her service dog, she, is getting her learner's permit, and she is also holding down a steady job, which I thought was just, I get chills thinking about this. So go Marduk. Woohoo! All right. So let's get into those wonderful myths that you're all here to learn about. Diabetic alert dogs can only be trained to alert to high and low blood sugar. So again, that thing about we are a bunch of biochemical signals, it's totally true. So theoretically, dogs can be trained to alert to any condition that has a biological component. So if you have diabetes and epilepsy, we can train the dog to alert to both conditions. Additionally, our dogs can be trained to provide psychiatric support, mobility, and any other service work that is needed for you as an individual. And the interesting thing is that we have had students come into our program for anxiety disorders, and have actually ended up setting off the resident diabetic alert dog, Mr. Liam here, who is over here sitting by beside me. And it turns out these people who were diagnosed with anxiety disorders actually ended up having hypoglycemia. So we have actually diagnosed 3 hypoglycemics using the wonderful nose of Mr. Liam, my diabetic alert dog. So yeah, diabetic alert dogs can not only be trained for low and high blood sugar, but they can be trained for all different types of service work. Myth: a diabetic alert dog will only pick up on my high or blood sugar since it was trained by me. So unfortunately, this is going to be the case For any well-trained diabetic alert dog, your dog is going to pick up on any high or any low blood sugar in the environment. This can be kind of a pain in the rear end sometimes because you never know when the blood sugar set is coming from you. So it might be coming from, the guy 3 rows back in the airplane who's a diabetic who's going low. It might be like we've had our diabetic alert dog classes, and basically we have an alert by Liam, and we have to check all of the diabetics because we never know who it is. And sometimes, this guy is 20 minutes ahead of a meter. So it's really sometimes hard to figure out who the diabetic is that's going low. So your dog is going to annoy you. And actually, we have, I think, a good probably 80% of our dogs have helped to alert other people to low blood sugars. So I can think of, I didn't actually put Violet's picture on here, but Violet has apparently poked 4 people in the leg, just random strangers, and turns out that they are diabetics and that they were actually feeling low. So yay, Violet, love you. She's a little black Labrador. His Violet's owner is on our website in the new feedback video. His name is Rich, and he talks about his experience with his diabetic alert dog. All right, myth. I'm a type 2 diabetic and consequently don't go low. I don't need to train for low blood sugar. That is totally and completely untrue. Most of the type 2 individuals who come to our class actually find out that when they start to train for low blood sugar, they actually go low a lot more than they ever knew. So, for example, this is Madison and her owner. And Madison's owner was a type 2 diabetic. And she said, "Oh, no, I don't go low. I don't know. I don't need to train for low blood sugar." And she came in, and every single time she came into class, she set off Liam. And she was going low all of the time. And so basically, she didn't believe it until 6 weeks into the class, when her dog was consistently alerting over and over again that she actually was experiencing low blood sugars. And the sad fact is that the doctors of the students never believe them until they actually physically bring in our meters. So, for example, this woman was saying, I'm going low," and her doctor didn't believe her. And then as soon as the dog actually started picking up on the lows, I think it was about week 6 or 7 in the class, she brought in her meter, and her doctor finally believed her. All right, myth. Diabetic alert dogs can only be trained for type 1 diabetics. So this is actually not true. So we can train for type 1, type 2, type 1.5, or whatever LADA is, and then hypoglycemia. So we can train all different types of alert dogs for you. Myth. Diabetic alert dogs under 6 months of age are not reliable alerters. They can be sometimes incredibly reliable as long as they are properly trained and properly managed. So, for example, this is a picture of Mr. Cooper. He actually went to work at 3.5 months of age, and he is also featured in the video. He's much bigger now on our website, and he is an amazing alert dog. This guy basically ended up getting unfortunately getting his work restricted because he could not, he was getting called in by the paramedics every 2 months by his employer because he'd pass out, and they put him on restricted work duty. And now that he has, starting with this 3.5-month-old dog, in the last 8 months, he hasn't seen a single paramedic visit at home or at his work. So, this dog worked from 3.5 months of age until I think I can't remember how old he is right now, but it's been 8 months and he hasn't had a single paramedic visit, and he used to have them every 2 months. So, a 3.5-month-old dog can actually make a reliable diabetic alert dog as long as you make sure that you're doing the training and you are watching your dog for the signs of low blood sugar. All right, myth. A diabetic alert dog will catch all of my lows and all of my highs. So dogs are living, breathing beings, and as such, are not perfect. Okay, we as humans um, are expecting, our dogs to be perfect, but we aren't. So why in the world would we expect our dogs to be perfect? So some things that can affect a dog's ability to alert are the level of exercise that day. So if you've taken your dog out to a park and he has played for 2.5 hours playing ball, chase, and playing with other dogs, and he sat out in the hot sun, and he's exhausted, he may not alert to you. Um, if they are on any type of medication. Like, for example, Liam at one point was on Benadryl and high dose antibiotics for a skin infection that he had, and it was making him feel miserable. And so his alert ability was just in the toilet. And as you know, if you've ever had an antibiotic, it affects your sense of taste, it affects your sense of smell, it affects your sense of your well being. So dogs are just like we are. They experience uncomfortableness and they don't feel like doing their job at all times. Another example is if they have a cold, or if they are in an environment that frightens them, or if they are, say, too hot. Like one of our diabetic alert dogs was trained here in the Pacific Northwest. And I think about week 7, his owner ended up going to Arizona where it was like 105 degrees outside. And the dog, was sporadically alerting because basically the dog was completely exhausted. There was no air conditioning in the environment he was in. So, he wasn't used to being in this really hot environment with this big gigantic coat he had on. So it's pretty typical for dogs to not alert when you go into environments where it's really incredibly hot or they just don't feel good. So it's really important that you understand that your dog will not catch all of your lows and highs. Dogs are not machines. They are just meant to help you manage your diabetes, okay? They are not to be the be all to end all solution for your diabetes. Myth: a diabetic alert dog will either require me to um, test less often or not at all. Actually, our students find that they actually have to test more than when they had than before they had the diabetic alert dog. So, what this means is basically you're actually not going to replace testing. You're actually going to do more testing because your dog is going to catch your low at 110 or even at one of our students was at 155, and 30 minutes later he was at 80. So, your dog is gonna tell you you're low. Your meter is gonna say that you're not, but you actually are going low. So we do not know what dogs are picking up on. Unfortunately, no one knows at this point. So it may be some sort of biochemical change that happens when you drop suddenly. We don't know. Um, so basically, even if a dog alerts to a low blood sugar, you need to know how much to feed yourself. Or if the dog alerts to high blood sugar, you need to know how much insulin to give yourself. So this whole notion that you will not have to test is completely bunk. I've seen a lot of reports in the media. Oh, I now that I have my diabetic alert dog, I don't have to test anymore. I don't have to prick my fingers. No, completely untrue. You're going to have to do even more testing because of your diabetic alert dog. Myth: diabetic alert dogs can only sense extreme highs and extreme lows. Our students are actually able to set their own alert points. So, for example, one of our students, at the advice of her doctor, she had just experienced an incredibly horrible low blood sugar where she had to have the paramedics come in, and they wanted to um, have her low point set at 100 because they didn't want to experience another incredibly low like she had. I think she was at 27 when they finally got got a blood sugar reading on her. So basically, what they said is they don't want anything below 100. So actually, we were able to set her dog's point to 100, alert point to 100, and then over time, once her medication um, had gotten dealt with and settled, we actually changed her alert point back to a normal alert point around 70. So we are actually able to customize your dog's alert point per your doctor's recommendations. And although it can take time to move that point around through training, it actually can be done. So what we don't want to do is train dogs that only alert when you are about to pass out. That's not the type of alert dog that we want to train. We want to train an alert dog who has the opportunity to give you time to treat your low or treat your high. What happens is when you have a diabetic alert dog, you tend to stay in a normal blood sugar range versus going into 500s or going down to 40s. You actually end up being in a fairly normal blood sugar range, which is kind of cool. So it's not just the extreme highs and extreme lows. Myth: everyone should have a diabetic alert dog to help them manage their diabetes. If you don't like dogs, do not get a diabetic alert dog. And the important thing is, if you cannot dedicate at least an hour of your life every day to your diabetic alert dog, you shouldn't get one. And this hour is going to include anything. It's going to include exercise, it's going to include play, it's going to include feeding and training. So unfortunately, this means that you're going to actually have like an extra child to take care of. So for those of you who have families who have little kids with diabetes, you're actually adding an extra child to your daily regimen. So you need to understand that that having a diabetic alert dog is really like having an extra child with you. And the thing about having a diabetic alert dog is that everything takes about twice as long to do. So, for example, like going to the grocery store, when you get out of the car, someone's going to ask you about your diabetic alert dog and where you got your diabetic alert dog and how the diabetic alert dog works. And then as you're walking into the grocery store, the person who is guarding the door is going to ask you about your diabetic alert dog. And then as you're going to go get the gallon of milk, there'll be a kid who wants to pet your diabetic alert dog and wants to talk to you about your diabetic alert dog. And as you're grabbing the gallon of milk, there's going to be some old lady who comes by and she wants to talk to you about your diabetic alert dog. And as you're going to the cashier, she wants to talk to you about your diabetic alert dog. And then, as you're exiting, the person at the door wants to pet your diabetic alert dog before you leave. So like everything takes 2 to 3 times longer to do with a diabetic alert dog than it does normally. So be prepared to be asked by a ton of people and talked to by a ton of people once you have a diabetic alert dog, and nothing is easy after that. All right, myth: diabetic alert dogs that cost $20,000 are easier to train than dogs that you are sorry. Diabetic alert dogs that cost $20,000 are better than dogs that you train yourself. Hold on just 1 second here. Sorry, I wasn't getting any audio. All right. So my husband was telling me there wasn't any audio, but I guess that is working now. So this is actually untrue. Just because you pay more money for something doesn't mean you're going to get a better product. There are actually companies out there who are just taking people's money and providing them with a partially trained dog or even a dog with no training at all. So be very careful. There are a lot of scammers out there. You can make a ton of money setting up all these like nonprofits that haven't set out any IRS information. Go ahead, take a look at your diabetic alert dog trainer. Run a nationwide background check on them. Make sure that they haven't committed fraud anywhere else, because a lot of people are actually opening up organizations and that they are scamming people. So it's really super important that you investigate who you are paying that sum of money to. And training your own dog helps create a bond that isn't duplicated in the purchase of an already trained dog. However, just because you purchase a dog doesn't mean that your dog can't bond with you. I adopted Jasper at 8 years of age, and within a year of having him, I actually bumped into his previous owner, at a grocery store one day. And she's like, "Is that Jasper?" And I said, "Yes." And she's like, "Oh my gosh, he used to be my dog. I sent him back to the Humane Society because I got divorced and I couldn't handle him anymore with my 4 kids." And she just gave me the story about her. And Jasper didn't even recognize her. He didn't even do anything to her. So this whole notion that, your dog needs to bond with you, you need to get a puppy to make it bond with you. If you purchase a $20,000 dog, it's not going to bond with you. Totally false. A dog will bond with anyone who feeds them and anyone who treats them well. So do not worry about this whole notion of paying $20,000 for a dog and that makes it somehow better than a dog that you train yourself. However, there can be really great $20,000 diabetic alert dogs. Myth. I can get a free diabetic alert dog. So, unfortunately, the old adage about nothing in life is free is 100% true when it comes to service dogs. So, most organizations will require you to do fundraising or make donations to their organization, or they will, require you to talk to the media. So, this whole notion that you can get a quote unquote free diabetic alert dog really is a myth. Sorry to tell you that, but it really is. And sometimes those free diabetic alert dogs, you have to wait anywhere from, 2 to 5 years to get. So that is why we've actually started this program, is because we want people to be able to start their lives. We want people to not have to wait years to get a diabetic alert dog. We want you to be able to train the dog that's in your home. Like some of these organizations that give you the free diabetic alert dog, you can't even have a dog already in your home, or you can't have a cat, or you basically are signing your life away when you get this dog. You're signing your life away to the organization. So we want to make sure that you understand, if you are on that wait list for a free diabetic alert dog, you're probably going to be there for a while, and you are probably unfortunately going to have to do fundraising and make donations, and again, nothing in life is free. Myth. I can't recuperate the costs of a diabetic alert dog training or maintenance. So actually, diabetic alert dog training is tax deductible. This is really super cool, including healthcare, equipment such as vests, harnesses, and leashes. So you can actually deduct the cost of training your diabetic alert dog off your taxes, which is really cool. The thing is that it needs to be a certain percentage of your income. So if you make $20,000 a year and you pay, $2,000 in our program to train your diabetic alert dog, you're going to be able to recuperate some of that money from your diabetic alert dog. However, if you make $200,000 a year and you pay $2,000 to train your diabetic alert dog, you're probably not going to get the tax write-off for it. So just be aware that it has to exceed a certain percentage of your income in order to be able to qualify as a tax deductible expense. Myth. My insurance company will cover a diabetic alert dog. We've actually never heard of a insurance company that will cover, unfortunately, a diabetic alert dog. So nor do they ever cover the expenses related to a diabetic alert dog. And why don't insurance companies cover diabetic alert dogs? The myth that there is no scientific evidence to prove that diabetic alert dogs are doing what they're doing. This actually was completely true until about a couple months ago. So a couple months ago, there was actually a single scientific study that was released about diabetic alert dogs and them actually sensing blood sugar alerts. So previously, this had been thought of as the clever Hans effect. I don't know if you know about the clever Hans effect, but what this I actually have a picture of Mr. Clever Hans here. It was a horse who could theoretically count, and so this guy would say, Hans, count to 8, and Hans would stomp his foot 8 times. And basically, what they did was they put this guy behind a barrier, and they had the guy tell the horse count to 8. And all of a sudden, as soon as the dog or the horse was put behind the barrier and could not see the horse's owner anymore, he couldn't count anymore. So that's what the clever Hans effect is that this horse was watching this person's body language and determining whether or not he was close to the number in which, he was supposed to stop tapping his hoof. So we know that this is not the clever Hans effect because basically our dogs have been behind a barrier and not been able to see anyone who walked into the room, and then all of a sudden pops up and starts sniffing the air and starts alerting, and turns out there was a diabetic at the front door that we didn't even know about. He just walked in and he wanted to know about our program. I didn't even know he was a diabetic, and his blood sugar was low at that point. And then also, unfortunately, one day I remember in class I had left a scent sample bottle sitting on top of the studio's wall, half wall that we have that makes a double door entrance into the studio. And I left that scent sample sitting there with the cap open. I didn't know it at the time, but Liam is alerting, he's alerting, and everyone's checking their blood sugar, and it's no one. And I'm like, my dog is broken. Oh my gosh, what is going on? And it turns out, I find out 20 minutes later, as he's still continuing to alert and everybody's walking out the front door, that this scent bottle had been sitting there accidentally after I'd passed out the scent sources to the students to work with. I left it open, and it was right by the mail slot, which blew the air into the studio and probably was what was causing Liam to alert. So, this open bottle of scent source was there, and he was like, "Hey mom, there's a low, there's a low, there's a low." And you know what? There actually was a low, and it wasn't anyone in the room. It was that bottle of scent source sitting there. And then we've also had cases where we've trained diabetic alert dogs. A dog brought over a meter to us, and we're like, we thought, oh my gosh, this dog is alerting. What is going on? We test, there's no low. We test again 20 minutes later, there's no low. Turns out this woman had a tissue inside of her meter that she had dabbed her blood on when she was low, like to dab the blood off of her finger. And that's what the dog was picking up on. Every time he brought the meter, he would tell her there was a low in the room. Well, that's because her blood sugar, her low blood sugar scent was on the blood sample inside the meter container. So this whole notion that that this is just the clever Hans effect, or that the dog is picking up on body cue signals, it's totally false. We've had so many examples of this happening. Again, the dogs walking by, like Violet walked by 4 people and told them that they were low, and she didn't even know that they were diabetics. This guy didn't even know that these people were diabetics. And this has happened multiple times over and over again. Our dogs have diagnosed hypoglycemics and diagnosed diabetics. All right. In our personal opinion, the reason why that there have been so little studies is that pharmaceutical companies cannot make billions off of something that every single dog on the face of the earth is born with, and that's a nose. So, however, I've just found out there's actually a Eli Lilly study going on right now to research what these dogs are actually smelling so that they can make a product to detect it. Unfortunately to them, it's all about profit. So now that they're actually finding out that there's some profit in this, now they're picking up on the fact that these dogs are actually doing what we say that they've been doing for years. Our students have reported, with their diabetic alert dogs, that they have had a reduction in hospitalizations, improvement in their overall A1C levels. They have had less visits with the paramedic standing over top of them, have an overall improvement on their outlook on life, and feel more free to go do things without someone being with them at all times. So one of my students tells this story about how he was able to have his wife go on vacation with his kids for 2 weeks while they went down to sell their house in Oregon. And prior to getting his diabetic alert dog, she wasn't even comfortable letting him, stay for 45 minutes alone without calling him. So because of his, well-trained diabetic alert dog, she was comfortable enough to go on vacation for 2 weeks and feel that he was perfectly fine with one of our alert dogs. And one of our other students tells a story about how basically his wife comes up to me and she goes, "Mary, thank you. I was actually able to go to the grocery store this morning without fear that my husband was going to die while I was gone." So, there are not only, you know, improvements in A1C levels, but there's overall improvements in your life quality when you have a diabetic alert dog. Myth: any dog can be trained to be a diabetic alert dog. So this is totally false. Dogs with chronic health problems should not be trained to be a diabetic alert dog. Dogs with fear issues. So dogs that are super anxious, who can't, go out in public without freaking out, should not be trained as diabetic alert dogs. And dogs with brachycephalia, so that would be the short, pushed in, smushed in noses dogs, such as bulldogs, Shih Tzus, boxers, should not be trained for diabetic alert because we don't know for sure if they can tell. Now, I can't tell you that a boxer is not going to be able to pick up your low blood sugar. I can't tell you for sure if that's the case, but in our program, we want to make sure that you are as successful as possible. And because dogs that are brachycephaly have a tendency to develop a lot of nasal problems, that is why we do not allow them in our program. So any of these issues can result in a consistently unreliable alerter. So again, health problems, fear issues, and nasal capacity reduction can result in a dog who is an unreliable alerter. Although this little girl, her name was Angel, she was really cute. She would not have qualified to be a diabetic alert dog in our program. Myth: a dog needs to be over 1 year of age to be a diabetic alert dog. And this actually states here if a dog, if we could start dogs at 3 weeks of age, we would do it. Actually, if we could start dogs at 3 days of age, we would do it. So if we could get involved with breeders who would help us imprint these puppies at 3 days of age, we would do it because dogs are like little tiny itsy bitsy sponges and they absorb information until about 17 to 20 weeks of age. And they are amazing in what they are capable of doing. And your dog, as a grown adult dog, will have the intellectual capacity of a 2 to 3-year-old child. So it's super important that you understand that the more training you do in the beginning, the better off your dog is going to be. And the more training you do, once you get that puppy at 8 weeks of age, the more likely that you're going to set up your dog to be successful as a diabetic alert dog because they have developmental windows that close at about 17 to 20 weeks of age that if you do not get your dog socialized, they will go into what's called a fear period and they will be afraid of everything for about the next 6 to 8 months of their life. And if they have negative experiences during that time, it can affect their ability to become a reliable alert dog and a reliable dog who can access the public. So it's really super important that you start as early as possible training for public access and training for service work. So the youngest dog that we have worked with was started at 7 weeks of age. Myth: finding a diabetic alert dog is easy. A diabetic alert dog trainer is easy. So actually, there are only between 10 and 20 quality trainers in the country. This is actually an incredibly brand new field in service dog training. And most of those people are charging anywhere between $10,000 and $25,000 for their services. So most people who claim to be diabetic alert dog trainers who are not in this, 10 to 20 quality trainer, field that I'm talking about, they don't actually have an experience to effectively train these dogs. And sometimes they're crossover trainers from like the police dog industry. So, these are people who trained attack dogs. And do you want an attack dog trainer training your diabetic alert dog? I mean, that just, in my opinion, sounds like an incredibly large liability. If this person has focused all of their life on training attack dogs and police dogs to guard people, basically the public is loud, obnoxious, and unpredictable to service dogs, and your dogs has to be okay with all single aspects of that. And if your dog trainer is an attack dog trainer or a police dog trainer, it's quite possible that they may not be using the best training methods on your service dog. So I would be very weary on anyone who is, decided to take the step of, changing their focus of their program from police dog training to diabetic alert dog training. I would assume that they were only getting into this just for the money. So again, research your organization. Anyone promising a 100% success rate does not have the experience level needed to be an effective trainer. They are lying to you, or they just are completely clueless. So we never claim to have a 100% success rate. Basically, it just doesn't happen. Success is dependent on you. It's dependent on the dog. It's dependent on how much training you do every day. It's dependent on how food motivated your dog is. It's dependent on how well your dog does in public. So this whole notion that you can have a 100% success rate is a very big red flag that you do not have the right trainer. All right, so we recommend that you actually do a statewide and nationwide background check on anyone claiming to be a diabetic alert dog trainer. There are a lot of organizations out there that are committing fraud and promising people products that they cannot deliver. So my recommendation is to type in your diabetic alert dog trainer's name into Google and then type in fraud or complaint and see what you come up with. So if you type in diabetic alert dog fraud into Google, you're going to find a whole bunch of articles on a specific organization who have been selling puppies and claiming that they're diabetic alert dogs at 2-3 months of age. And this, guy has basically been committing, has had a history of committing fraud. So it's super important that you research your dog trainer and make sure you get references from trainers with multiple finished dogs. So like if an organization is selling puppies as trained diabetic alert dogs, I want to know what's their success rate when they're 2 years of age. What's their success rate when they're a year and a half? What's their success rate when they're 4 years old? So this whole notion of these 2 to 3 month old $20,000 puppies as trained diabetic alert dogs, and you still actually have to do the training yourself. They're providing these $20,000 trained diabetic alert dogs, you still have to do the training yourself. I kind of don't know how these organizations are sleeping at night by selling these dogs to people, because you can go get a dog from the pound and train it yourself for a whole bunch less than $20,000. Myth: training a diabetic alert dog is easy. So actually it's a lot of work. You need to devote at least 1 hour a day to your dog, of which 20 minutes should be to training. So training needs to continue for the rest of your dog's life. Do not think that just because you have purchased a dog from someone that it means that you will never have to train your dog again. It is completely false. You need to make sure that you understand that you're going to have to continue training for the rest of your life and the rest of the dog's life to maintain the level in which the dog had been given to you. Myth: if you purchase a dog, you will not have to do additional training with your dog. Again, you will have to continue the training daily to make sure the dog keeps up on their alerting skills. Most reputable organizations make you take several weeks off to come and pick up your dog and learn how to do the training. And then organizations also require yearly or bi-yearly certification and require you to fly back out to their location, or have a trainer fly out to your location to keep your dog up on their public access skills, to make sure that they are still stably temperamented and make sure that they are still functioning as a diabetic alert dog. Myth: anyone can train a diabetic alert dog. That is a total fallacy. If you do not spend the time training your dog, you will not be successful. So we've had several students come into our program who have said that they wanted to train a diabetic alert dog, and then 5 weeks into the course they haven't done their homework, and we just basically refund their money. We refuse to work with them anymore. If you are not willing to put in the time to maintain and to train your diabetic alert dog, you are not a successful candidate for us. We do not want your money. We do not want to engage with you. We don't want anything to do with you. So again, our students are required to dedicate at least one full hour a day to the care and training of their dog. And if you can't find it in your schedule every day, you're setting yourself up for failure. Uh, and the other thing is that you must have proper mechanical skills to be able to train your dog. So one of our students actually had Parkinson's disease, and it was very hard for him to coordinate the clicker and the treats and everything. So it took him a much longer time to train his diabetic alert dog than any of our other students. Myth: anyone can choose a diabetic alert dog candidate for training. So just because your aunt grew up with dogs doesn't mean she's an expert on service dog training. So we actually recommend reading our free ebook entitled Super Puppy: Service Dog, Life Partner, Life Changer, Lifesaver: How to Find the Right Dog for Service Work. And this will get you an idea as to what we're looking for in our service dog candidates and how to find a qualified trainer in your area to help you find an appropriate service dog candidate to train for medical alert work, or to get in contact with us to schedule a dog. So this book is something like 28 pages. It's really great. It's all free advice. I would suggest reading it before you choose to partner with a diabetic alert dog or any service dog in general. And again, the book is free to download at the following web link that you're seeing on your screen here. All right, myth: I have a dog already, and he or she shows no signs when I go low. My dog will not make a good candidate. So just because your dog has not shown any previous signs of recognizing your low blood sugar scent does not mean that your dog will never be able to sense your low blood sugar or your high blood sugar. Of the 29 medical alert dogs that we've trained, only 2 have actually shown previous signs of recognizing a blood sugar event. However, this is super important. Those dogs only alerted when these people are about ready to pass out. So like in their 40s, or they were incredibly high, over 500. So this whole notion that just because your dog has been desensitized to your scent before doesn't mean that your dog cannot be trained to learn to do diabetic alert dog work. All right. Myth: you have to live in Seattle in order to train with Service Dog Academy. We have actually developed an intensive diabetic alert dog workshop/class where students from all over the country are coming to Seattle for 4 days to learn how to train their diabetic alert dog. So this program actually gives you 4 weeks of worth of homework before you come into our studio, so that you have a foundation to work with when you leave. So, or when you come in for class. So what we found is that there's some problems with some of these alert dog programs, and that basically you come in with a dog and they try to train you within 2 to 4 days on how to train your own diabetic alert dog. Well, in our opinion, you can't train a reliable diabetic alert dog in 4 days. It's just impossible. So what we do is we give you a foundation before you walk in the door, and then you use that to train your diabetic alert dog in the days that you're at our studio. So in 2013, we plan to go to 4 cities across the country to do this intensive diabetic alert dog training workshop. If you want more information, you can go to servicedogacademy.com, go to diabetic alert, and go to the diabetic alert category and choose the intensive diabetic alert dog workshop from the drop down menu. We actually have one coming up Labor Day weekend. We have one coming up in mid-November, and then we also have one coming up in January of 2013. So we look forward to possibly seeing you there. All right, myth: there's only one way to train a diabetic alert dog. There are actually a number of different ways to train a diabetic alert dog. However, it's most effective if you use positive reinforcement. So if you wouldn't do it to a 2-year-old child, you're not going to do it to a dog in my classroom. This is a dog that is supposed to save your life. We want your dog to love you and to love their job. So You know, your dog isn't going to love you if you hit him repeatedly, if you shock him with an e-collar, if you put a prong collar on him. He's not going to really like you. He's going to be scared of his job. So it's super important that you use a positive reinforcement trainer, and one that is strictly positive reinforcement. If they say anything about prong collars or shock collars, you need to run as fast as possible. There's actually a crossover police dog trainer that we know of that has had some serious repercussions from using prong collars and shock collars on their diabetic alert dogs that cost, $15,000. And these dogs are now refusing to alert because they've been scared of their job. My husband's telling me that I'm running out of time, but I'm going to continue to talk, and you can decide whether or not you want to leave the webinar or not. I've got a whole bunch of stuff still to cover. So, myth: all dogs can be trained to alert at night. Dogs are deep sleepers sometimes, and they might never alert at night. And it's really uncommon to get a night alerter. So anyone who is promising you that your dog is going to be a night alerter is actually lying to you. So it's super important that you understand that dogs are just like humans. When they're young, they sleep really deeply. So like when you're 2 years old, your mom can pick you up out of your car seat, while you're sleeping, change your clothes and your nighties, and then put you into your crib, and you still completely stay asleep. But as me as a 35-year-old woman, my husband even walks down the stairs and I have fallen asleep on the couch, and I immediately wake up. So dogs are the same way. And here's the deal: you're also trying to train the unconscious mind. I mean, that is incredibly hard. So this notion that, you're automatically going to get a night alerter through a training process is completely bonk and completely false. Anyone who's promising you that is basically lying to you. Myth: Labradors, Golden Retrievers, Poodles, or mixes thereof are the best diabetic alert dogs. So actually, any dog with sufficient nasal capacity should theoretically be able to train to alert. However, we like to use these breeds because of their working drive, their food drive, and their typical service dog appearance. When you have an invisible disability, basically, you're going to be, if you walk in with your pit bull, like Mr. Spencer here, you're going to be asked by every person, in the store if your dog is a service dog. Spencer makes an amazing diabetic alert dog. He has saved his owner's life countless times. But, unfortunately, he goes into public and all of a sudden everyone thinks he has an attack dog. So our recommendation is to get a stereotypical dog because you have an invisible disability as a person with diabetes, and you want at least confrontation as possible. All right. If I just get a dog and have it around, my dog will naturally pick up on the scent and start to alert. This is actually a really rare occurrence for most dogs. Only a small percentage of them, it's kind of estimated anywhere between 1 and 5%, have a natural alerting ability. And the thing is about these quote unquote natural alerters is they usually only alert to low blood sugars when you are, right about to pass out. Your blood sugar is 30 or 40 or 20, and it doesn't give you a chance to really treat the condition so you don't end up feeling crappy for the rest of the day. So our dogs are trained to give you a big enough window to take care of the problem before it becomes an issue. So you never end up getting super high or super low. So again, this can happen. Your dog can naturally pick up on low blood sugars and high blood sugars, but it's a pretty big rarity. And again, they usually pick up on really super lows and super highs. Myth: a meter is more accurate than a diabetic alert dog's. Our dogs can actually detect a low blood sugar or a high blood sugar sometimes 20 to 30 minutes before a meter detect it. So this is Jeff and his dog Cooper. This is one of the dogs that was in the photos before, and he's actually on our website talking about our program. Here's his quote: "A couple of times he's alerted me in the 150s, and I thought he was misdiagnosing me. But when I tested 30 minutes later, my blood sugar had dropped in the 80s. For that reason, I trust him more than I trust my feelings about being low. So you need to realize that these dogs are incredibly accurate when they're trained properly, and they will detect sometimes 20 minutes before your meter can detect it. And again, we don't know what they're picking up on. They may be picking up on a biochemical change that happens when your blood sugar drops quickly. We do not know what these dogs are picking up on. So super important that you understand that just because your meter is reading one thing does not mean that your dog is not right. Myth. Service Dog Academy only helps people train their own dogs for Diabetic Alert. So actually starting in January of 2013, Service Dog Academy will have a trained Diabetic Alert dog program available for diabetics over the age of 8. So actually we are picking up our first puppy candidate today from a dog breeder in California. And this dog, or these dogs, are going to be raised in the home of a graduate of Bergen University. This is the only college level degree program for assistance dog trainers. So basically what we're doing is we're moving this whole element of the puppy raiser, because what can happen with a puppy raiser is they don't follow your program, or they don't train properly, or they put the dog in a situation where they can get hurt, and then that dog is not suitable for service work because they've gotten bitten by another dog, and that their environment wasn't completely controlled. So to get one of our service dogs that have been raised by a graduate of Bergen University, go to our website, Service Dog Academy, click on the Diabetic Alert Dog category, and choose the already trained dog tab from the drop-down menu, and get on our list if you'd like to receive one of our trained Diabetic Alert dogs. Again, there are only 4 to 6 per year because we make sure that these dogs are trained with a trainer. It'd be easy for us to put these dogs into puppy raiser homes, but sometimes what happens is the success rate falls incredibly through the floor when you have a dog that is raised by a puppy raiser. Myth. A diabetic alert dog is the answer to mine or my child's diabetes. So a diabetic alert dog should be used in conjunction with diet, behavior modification, exercise, proper testing, and control. A diabetic alert dog is not meant to replace proper medical care and the advice of your doctor. This is not a be-all to end-all solution to your diabetes. It's super important that you understand it. This is only another tool in your arsenal to manage your diabetes. And also, just remember, a diabetic alert dog is not meant to replace proper adult supervision of a child with diabetes or an adult with diabetes. All right. Myth. A diabetic alert dog will allow me to relax at night knowing my child is safe. So a diabetic alert dog is, again, not meant to replace supervision of a diabetic child. And again, diabetic alert dogs are never guaranteed to be night alerters. So it's really super important that you understand that. Again, the exercise level of a dog per day will determine whether or not they're going to wake up in the night. If they've been playing for 2.5 hours, at the park with their friends and sitting out in the sun and it's 105 degrees outside, they're probably not going to wake up that evening when your child goes low. So it's super important that you understand that night alerting is never guaranteed. You're training the unconscious mind. Myth. You can take your diabetic alert dog everywhere with you. Well, actually, that's not true. Under federal law, sterilized operating rooms, churches, and Indian reservations do not have to comply with service dog access regulations. So some of our students and students across the country actually have problems with taking their diabetic alert dog to school. This is true for elementary schools, middle schools, and high schools. I don't understand why this happens, but most of our students have to fight for their right to be able to bring their trained diabetic alert dog into the school with them. It's a really sad situation. If you have a child with diabetes and you want your dog, your diabetic alert dog, to go with you to school, I want you to make sure that you're prepared for a legal battle, because it might take a legal battle to be able to get your dog into school. It's really sad. This is not necessarily true for universities. They're kind of, hip to the whole, like, I can see you thing. But there's something about the public school system that makes it so that basically if you have a diabetic alert dog and you have a child, you're unfortunately going to be in for a battle to bring that diabetic alert dog into school. Diabetic Alert Dogs Myth. Diabetic Alert Dogs and service dog in training are covered under state and federal laws. So if you have a dog in training, it is actually not covered under federal law. You are going by the good graces of your housing provider or the place that you're trying to access. Some states actually have a service dog in training law. Actually, I think California has one. But unfortunately, not all of the states in the United States have a service dog in training law that covers them. So Washington State, unfortunately, is not one of those. So we have had to help several students get out of that legal mumbo jumbo by boarding and training their puppy until they've had a Pavlovian response to a low blood sugar episode. And theoretically, under federal law, the dog was quote unquote trained to mitigate the symptoms of a disability. So their landlords couldn't then throw them out or kick them out and prevent them from accessing a work environment with their, 3.5-month-old puppy. So again, it's really important that you understand that a service dog in training may not have any rights in the area in which you are trying to access. All right, that is kind of the end of our presentation. We hope you've learned some stuff about diabetic alert dogs, and we've bunked some of the myths that you've probably heard. We just want to remind you that Service Dog Academy provides both, 8-week classes and then the intensive classes that allow you to train your own dog for diabetic alert. I want you to please check out our Facebook page. It's Service Dog Academy on Facebook for updates, and also our YouTube channel will have free training advice as well. And we can't wait to help you become a more independent person with the use of a trained diabetic alert dog through our program. So I'm going to open this up to questions. I don't know exactly how to do this, but if you do have a question, please type them into your system right now. All right. Let's see. Let's see what questions we have. All right. I'm looking through your questions here. I have a diabetic alert dog who balks at escalators. Do you continue to work on it or stick to elevators? Stick to elevators, whoever you are, because unfortunately, escalators have been known to mangle dog feet. So it's super important that you make sure that you take as many elevators as possible. And the reason why your dog is balking at them is because it's a scary thing. It's moving and it could possibly hurt them. All right. Where I have enjoyed the seminar and read your excellent ebook, but have some more specific questions. Where can we call for more information? You can actually set up an individual appointment with me through our website, servicedogacademy.com, and click on, I think it's under the service dog training heading. It should be schedule an individual appointment. All right. Being a self-trainer with your help and the Diabetic Alert Dog University site, how do you get some type of verification that your dog is trained? Good question. So basically, the way that you get verification that your dog is trained is you track your training. It's super important that you track your training, because if you get called into court, you need to provide documentation that your dog has been training. So actually in our program, we actually provide you with something called a taproot form that allows you to every single week track your training, so that, if that occasion comes where someone says your dog is not a trained dog, you actually have physical documentation that you have been doing the training. So it's super important, every one of you who does training of your dog, that you document the training, or else your dog is technically not a service dog because you haven't documented that process. This person asked, did you say that you are going to other cities with the 4-day seminar? Yes, I am. I haven't picked the cities yet. I will determine that based on the people who are actually attending this webinar and who contact me and tell me that they are interested in having a seminar in their area. So please contact me if you are interested in a seminar. We got a thank you. All right. All right. I know this webinar focuses on diabetic alert dogs, but I'm looking for a seizure response dog. It's my understanding that Service Dog Academy can help with training seizure response dogs. Who can I talk to about more information? I did not get a response when I left a message last time. So there's actually a difference between a seizure response dog and a seizure alert dog. A seizure response dog actually responds after you have the seizure. A seizure alert dog responds before you have the seizure, and we actually train seizure alert dogs. So that's probably why you may not have got a call back from us, is because we don't focus on the response portion, we focus on the alert portion. We have actually just completely consolidated our program so that we are no longer training psychiatric service dogs, or no longer training mobility support dogs. We are only focusing on medical alert dogs. So that's probably why you didn't get a response back from us, is because that's what we are focusing on right now. More questions. The link to the ebook was long and it was on the screen only briefly. So actually, if you just go to our website, the front page, there's a big yellow photo on the bottom that has the picture of the actual ebook. You click on that picture, that should take you to the actual article that we write about the ebook. And if you just click on that big yellow picture again, that'll actually link to the ebook. So you don't have to worry about, typing in this big, long, gigantic ebook. All right. All right. We've got a question. I've got a 7.5-week-old puppy. How should we get started on training him? You can either, do that through our online program, Diabetic Alert Dog University, or you can come in through the, intensive Diabetic Alert Dog classes. All right. All right. Oh, this is a good question. I have a 7-year-old Labrador who is a therapy dog. I want to train her to alert to hypoglycemia. Is this a good idea to train her, or is it better to get another dog? Well, here's the thing. You have to think about what is good for this dog. Don't think about what's good for you. Think about what is good for this dog. Your dog is going to be required every single day to jump in and out of a car repeatedly over and over again, is going to be required to follow you for miles upon end around your office and around, going to the grocery store and stuff. So you have to make sure that your dog is physically capable of becoming a service dog and not be in pain. If a dog is in pain, they will be much less likely to want to do their job. So it's super important that you evaluate whether or not your dog should spend the next 6 months training as a diabetic alert dog, and if they can actually perform that function without pain. Super important for older dogs. Our oldest dog that we trained was 8 years of age for diabetic alert. But again, that dog only has a couple of years of actual possible service life in them. So, it depends on how good health your dog is in, whether or not you should get a new dog or you should concentrate on the one that you have. All right. That looks like about most of the questions that I can answer at this time. So I hope you guys have all learned stuff, and I very much appreciate you attending this webinar, and I hope to hear back from you, any feedback that you have regarding it. I'm hoping to eventually put it up on our website so that other people can view it, and you can, go over this information that you've heard again. So thank you for attending, and we cannot wait to hear back from you, any feedback that you have regarding this. And if you could go ahead and go to our Facebook page or go on YouTube and talk about what you've heard here, we'd really appreciate it. So we look forward to hearing from you and seeing you in cyberspace. Have a good day.